Picture this, right? You are sitting in a Monday morning meeting.
Oh, I know the exact one.
Yeah, the fluorescent lights overhead have that faint kind of anxiety-inducing buzz. You know the sound.
Oh, absolutely.
You are sipping from a mug of, like, aggressively lukewarm coffee, and you're just staring at a PowerPoint deck that has way, way too many bullet points.
Naturally.
Right. And your boss is standing at the front of the room enthusiastically pitching a brand new strategy. And as they are talking, it just slowly dawns on you that this strategy is undeniably, spectacularly bad.
Like a total train wreck.
Exactly. It is a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, it is an idea so inherently flawed that you can actually hear the company's stock price crying in the future.
It really is an incredibly universal and honestly a highly visceral experience.
Yeah.
Because in that exact moment, the air just completely leaves the room.
It really does.
Well, at least it leaves a room for you. I mean,
Yeah.
the presenter is still smiling, but your internal clock just seems completely stop.
It is agonizing. And welcome to today's deep dive, because we are getting right into the mechanics of that exact terrifying moment.
We really are.
We've pulled together a stack of fascinating sources analyzing workplace behavior and organizational psychology to unpack the intense tension of challenging authority.
Right.
So our mission today is to look at what actually happens neurologically, socially, and politically when the person writing your paychecks is just completely, utterly wrong.
And to really get to the bottom of that question, what if your boss is wrong?
Oh.
Quote, we are going to throw out all the generic corporate advice.
Please, toss it out.
Right. We are putting aside the HR manuals that cheerfully tell you to foster open dialogue and bring your authentic self to work.
Because those don't actually work in real life.
They really don't. Those platitudes do not help you when the stakes are real.
Yeah.
So instead, we are focusing purely on the raw human behavior, the deep-seated social anxiety, and, well, the massive ego dynamics at play in that specific room.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because in that microsecond of panic, when your boss drops a terrible idea, you obviously don't have time to consult an HR handbook.
Definitely not.
Your brain instantly splits into two warring factions. It feels like a full-on neurological crisis. But, I mean, why does a bad PowerPoint presentation trigger the exact same physical response as being chased by a bear?
Well, honestly, because your brain doesn't necessarily know the difference between the two.
Wait, really?
Yeah. When you realize the boss is wrong, you are suddenly flooded with a massive fight-or-flight response. The sources point to a neurological phenomenon often called an amygdala hijack.
An amygdala hijack.
Right.
Yeah.
Because in our evolutionary history, we survived by staying within the safety of the tribe.
Right, safety in numbers.
Exactly. If you challenged the tribal leader and got cast out, that literally meant physical death.
Wow. Okay.
So you fast forward to the modern office, right?
Right.
The boss is the tribal leader, and your continued employment is your access to food and shelter.
That makes total sense.
So the mammalian part of your brain registers a public disagreement, not as a simple, difference of opinion, but as a literal physical threat to your survival.
That makes so much sense. I mean, it explains why my palms get sweaty just thinking about correcting a manager's math.
Oh, absolutely.
So your brain realizes that neither fighting nor fleeing is a socially acceptable option in a Monday morning status meeting.
You can't exactly run out of the room.
Right, you are trapped. And that leads to this internal split. On one side of your brain, you have what we can call a team kamikaze.
Yes. This is the adrenaline response. Team kamikaze is the urge that pushes you toward immediate, unfiltered confrontation.
Oh, I know Team Kamikaze so well. This is the urge to stand up, slam your hands on the conference table, and play the heroic savior.
Yes.
You get this cinematic, like Aaron Sorkin-style vision of yourself delivering a brilliant monologue that rescues the company from impending doom.
Right, the movie version.
Exactly. And when you finish speaking, everyone in the room is going to stand up and slow clap for your brilliance.
Which never happens.
Right.
But that is the fight mechanism trying to assert dominance.
Right.
But almost immediately, the other faction kicks in, which is team survival.
The fight response.
Exactly.
Right.
This is the flight or freeze response.
Yeah.
It's that very anxious, very pragmatic voice whispering in your ear, hey, let's look at the calendar. Rent is due in exactly 2 weeks. Do not say a word.
Just nod and smile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just nod, smile, and look very intently at your notepad. Team survival is perfectly willing to quietly strap into a deck chair on a sinking ship because, well, at least you won't get thrown overboard before the crash.
Right. Now, society loves to frame this dynamic as a grand moral dilemma.
Oh, constantly.
Whenever you read generic articles about workplace culture, it is always pitched as integrity versus cowardice.
Right, the good versus evil narrative.
Yeah, like if you speak up, you are a beacon of undeniable truth, and if you stay quiet, you are a spineless coward who lacks principles. But I have to say, looking at the behavioral research in our sources today, isn't that a completely useless way to look at it?
Completely.
It feels kind of like judging someone for, I don't know, not voluntarily jumping in front of a speeding train.
You are hitting on the exact flaw in how we are taught to view professional conflict. I mean, the integrity versus cowardice binary isn't just unhelpful. The sources actually argue it is entirely destructive.
Destructive? How so?
Because it forces people into these moral extremes that just don't reflect the functional reality of human interaction. When we view speaking up purely as a moral test of courage, we completely ignore the complexity of power dynamics.
Right. It completely ignores the fact that the person you are correcting holds the keys to your livelihood.
Exactly. The deeper issue here isn't about whether individual employees have the guts to speak up. The real workplace tragedy stems from our fundamentally flawed perception of leadership.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, the sources suggest that we have been conditioned to view our bosses through one of two incredibly distorted lenses.
Okay.
On one hand, we treat them like infallible gods whose words are handed down from a mountaintop and cannot possibly be questioned.
Right. Or, if we don't think they are gods, we treat them like fragile toddlers who will burst into tears and throw a massive tantrum if we try to take away their favorite toy.
Yes.
There is literally no middle ground in our minds. It's either Mount Olympus or a corporate daycare center.
And that is a very, very dangerous mental framework to operate from.
I can imagine.
Because we mistakenly view our bosses as either gods or toddlers, we tend to adopt one of two extreme, highly dysfunctional personas when we are forced to navigate these conflicts.
We fall back on bad habits.
Right. We abandon rational collaboration, and we fall back on behavioral archetypes to protect ourselves from that amygdala hijack we talked about earlier.
So if we treat them like gods or toddlers, how does that actually manifest in our behavior?
Well, it creates two distinct archetypes.
Right. The sources point to the first archetype, and honestly, this is the one I think the vast majority of people default to, the strategic silent passenger.
Yes, the quiet complainer.
Exactly. If we go back to that Monday morning meeting, this is the person who nods enthusiastically while the boss is pitching the disastrous strategy.
Just smiling away.
Right. They prioritize their psychological safety and their job security above literally everything else. They perform the role of the ultimate team player perfectly.
But we have to recognize that this agreement is entirely performative.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, they aren't actually on board with the strategy. They are literally just surviving the meeting.
Completely performative. Because what happens the exact second that meeting ends?
They go straight to the kitchen.
Yes. The silent passenger makes a beeline for the office kitchen. They find a trusted coworker, they hide behind the espresso machine, and they spend the next 45 minutes whispering about how the boss is a complete and total idiot who is going to ruin the department.
Oh, we've all seen it.
Right. They clearly saw the iceberg. They said absolutely nothing to the captain while they were on the bridge, and now they are just in the break room complaining about the temperature of the water.
And the psychological toll of that is immense.
Really?
No, absolutely. The sources emphasize that the silent passenger isn't just harming the organization by letting bad ideas move forward, they are actively harming themselves.
Just from the stress of it all.
Yeah, because over time, that constant suppression breeds deep, deep cynicism. They become detached from their work because they feel completely powerless.
That makes a lot of sense.
But then, on the other end of the spectrum, we have the person who completely rejects the silent passenger approach.
Right.
This is the rebel with a cause, or, as they often become known, the self-righteous martyr.
Ah, yes. This is Team Kamikaze in the flesh.
Exactly.
This person has watched way too many movies where the brilliant rogue gets rewarded for breaking the rules.
Precisely. This archetype decides they're going to risk their entire career to prevent an organizational disaster.
Right.
So in that same meeting, they raise their hand and they publicly correct the boss. They might point out a massive flaw in the budget math in front of like 15 stakeholders, and they do it loudly and clearly, completely convinced that their commitment to the objective truth makes them the undeniable hero of the story.
But the tragic irony of the rebel is just so painful to watch play out in real life.
It really is.
I mean, they might have actually won the factual argument. Their math on slide 4 might be 100% flawless.
Sure.
But in doing so, they didn't save the company. They just bought themselves a one-way ticket to the corporate shadow realm.
The shadow realm being that very real, very quiet place where your career goes to stagnate.
Yes. The shadow realm of forever ignored emails.
Oh, that's the worst.
Right. The sudden, mysterious lack of invites to the crucial strategy meetings. You just get iced out.
You do.
So congratulations to the rebel. You saved the math on one specific slide, but you sacrificed your entire ability to influence the company ever again. You are technically right, but you are now practically useless to the organization.
What's fascinating here is that when you analyze the fallout from both of these approaches, you realize they both fail for the exact same underlying reason.
Really? The same reason?
Yes. Despite acting completely differently, both the silent passenger and the rebel completely ignore the social dynamics of the room.
Ah.
Think about it. The silent passenger allows the ship to hit the iceberg because they're too afraid to speak.
Right.
The rebel ensures they are thrown overboard before the crash even happens, leaving the ship to hit the iceberg anyway.
That is so true.
Neither archetype actually solves the core problem of turning the ship.
I am struggling with this a bit, though.
Okay.
I mean, if silence kills the company and blunt rebellion kills my career, it feels like a rigged game.
It does feel that way.
Are the sources just telling us that we have to, manipulate our bosses? Because why is the burden on the employee to coddle a manager's emotions when the manager is the one pushing a terrible idea?
That is a very fair pushback, and honestly, it's a very common initial reaction to this research.
It just feels unfair.
It looks like coddling on the surface, I get that.
Yeah.
But we have to move away from our obsession with absolute objective truth in the workplace and start looking at the psychology of the boss's ego.
Okay.
The burden isn't on you because it's fair. The burden is on you because you want to be effective.
Oh, that's a good distinction.
Right. And you simply cannot be effective if you trigger your boss's status threat response.
So it's not about manipulation, it's about navigating the mammalian brain we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And this brings us to what the material calls ego-saving communication dynamics.
Ego-saving communication.
Right. We have to understand a fundamental truth about human nature, specifically human nature in a position of authority.
What's that?
Bosses do not actually hate being corrected. What they hate is feeling stupid in public.
Well, nobody likes feeling stupid in public.
Exactly. But when you are the boss, your entire status, your authority, and your identity in that room are deeply tied to your perceived competence.
Right. And when you threaten that competence and from their team, you trigger their amygdala.
Yes. Their defensive walls go up immediately. They stop processing logic and they start processing survival.
Wow.
Therefore, the art of feedback is not about if you say something. The decision to speak up is actually secondary. The true skill is entirely about how you dress it up. It is about strategic framing.
So what does this all mean? As I was reading through these psychological frameworks, it heavily reminded me of the story of the Emperor's New Clothes.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Because we are all taught from childhood to admire that brave little kid in the crowd who points and shouts, "Hey, the Emperor is naked."
Yep.
We hold that kid up as the ultimate truth teller, like the ultimate rebel with a cause.
And in a fairy tale, the crowd cheers for that kid.
Exactly. But in the real functional reality of the corporate world, if you are the kid who shouts that the Emperor is naked in front of all the royal stakeholders, the Emperor doesn't thank you for your honesty.
No, they definitely do not.
The Emperor just fires you for insubordination to protect his dignity. So instead of being the annoying kid pointing out the lack of clothes and embarrassing the leader, the sources suggest we need to learn how to be the trusted tailor.
I love that. The tailor approach completely changes the dynamic.
How so?
Well, the tailor doesn't shout in the town square. The tailor steps up quietly and says, "Your Majesty, this current fabric isn't quite suited for the winter draft we are expecting. Let's look at this premium wool instead."
Right. You are helping the Emperor pick out a better suit, basically saving them from the embarrassment without making them the punchline.
Precisely.
Okay, but I want to get very practical here. It sounds great in theory to be the tailor.
Sure.
But when you are sitting in that meeting, drinking your lukewarm coffee, and your boss is actively driving the project off a cliff,
Right.
how do you actually become the tailor in real life?
Well, to understand how to execute this, We need to transition into a highly realistic scenario.
Okay, let's do it.
We have to map out exactly how to deploy this strategic framing when the pressure is on and your fight or flight response is just screaming at you.
Let's set up a scenario that I think every single person listening to this deep dive has survived at least once.
I'm ready.
It's the massive all-hands meeting. Everyone from every department is dialed in. The big boss gets up and pitches an impossible project timeline.
A classic.
They look at the company and say, we are going to deliver this entire massive software overhaul in exactly 3 weeks.
Oh boy.
And you, knowing the underlying systems, know for an absolute fact it requires a minimum of 3 months.
Okay, let's look at the rebels' approach first. The disastrously blunt approach.
The kamikaze.
Right. The rebel raises their hand and states purely factually, this time frame is physically impossible. The back-end architecture cannot be overhauled in 3 weeks.
Which is an objectively true statement. I mean, they aren't lying.
It is objectively true, but we have to look at the psychological translation matrix occurring in the boss's brain.
The translation matrix.
Yeah. When you say, this time frame is impossible, what the boss hears, what instantly translates in their ego is, you are bad at your job. You lack the basic technical competence to estimate this project, and I am exposing your incompetence to the entire company.
But they are bad at their job if they think it takes 3 weeks.
Perhaps they are. But the moment they hear you are bad at your job, the drawbridge comes up.
Oh, yeah.
The alligators are released into the moat. You are no longer having a rational mathematical conversation about project timelines. You are now having a subconscious battle for dominance.
Because they feel threatened.
Exactly. They have to double down on the 3 weeks just to prove they are in charge.
So the blunt truth actively prevents the problem from being solved.
Exactly.
So we need the Taylor's approach. This is the politically savvy pivot.
Right.
Instead of the blunt correction, you swallow your kamikaze urge to be the hero and you pivot your language.
How do you do it?
You raise your hand and you say, I love the aggressive target. If we fast track this timeline, how do we handle the potential bottleneck on the database migration? And what resources can we reallocate from other teams to absorb the massive overtime?
That is perfect. Let's break down the mechanics of exactly why that phrasing works so beautifully to bypass the amygdala hijack.
Okay, what makes it work?
First, you validate them. I love the aggressive target. Notice you haven't actually agreed that the target is possible, but you have validated their ambition and their leadership.
You stroked the ego.
Yes. You have stroked the ego just enough to keep the drawbridge down.
You are sending a signal that says, I am on your side, I am part of your tribe, not a threat to it.
Exactly, and then you follow it up with a conditional statement. If we fast track this,
Right, the if.
you are temporarily stepping into their hypothetical world. But the real structural magic is the second half. How do we handle the potential bottleneck? And what resources can we reallocate?
It's brilliant because you are forcing them to do the math without ever explicitly telling them that their math is wrong. You are pointing out the exact same reality that the rebel pointed out, right? There is not enough time and systems will break.
But you change the enemy. By shifting the focus to a bottleneck and resource reallocation, the impossible timeline is no longer the boss's personal failure of estimation.
Wow.
It is now an external, shared puzzle for the team to solve together. You shifted from being an obstacle to becoming an accomplice in their inevitable success.
The rebel punched the captain in the face to try and grab the steering wheel and just got thrown in the brig.
Pretty much.
The politically savvy pivot is you standing next to the captain, looking through the binoculars together and saying, wow, we are moving fast. How are we going to navigate around that giant block of ice up ahead?
I love that.
You are steering the ship away from the iceberg without anyone losing face.
And that is the absolute core of ego-saving communication. It requires you to elevate your social IQ above your immediate desire to be right.
That's a hard shift for a lot of people.
It is. It asks you to look at the human being in front of you, even if they're your boss, even if they have authority, even if they are frustratingly wrong, and recognize that their ego is just as fragile as anyone else's.
Right.
When you protect their ego, they will drop their defenses and actually allow you to protect the company.
It totally reframes what it means to be a professional.
It really does.
It means that the next time you are in that fluorescent lit meeting and you see a train wreck happening in real time, you need to stop asking yourself if you have the guts to speak up.
Right.
Guts are cheap. Guts get you fired. Instead, you need to ask yourself if you have the social IQ to navigate the ego dynamics of the room. Can you frame the disaster not as a personal indictment of your boss's intelligence, but as a shared logistical puzzle?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, I think this material invites a really crucial peer-to-peer discussion, or at the very least, a moment of deep self-reflection for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Think back over your own career history. How often have you confused bluntness with integrity?
Oh, wow.
How many times have you prided yourself on just telling it like it is without realizing that your lack of strategic framing was inadvertently sending you straight to the corporate shadow realm?
That stings a bit to think about because, we all want to be the hero of our own movie, but sometimes insisting on being the hero just means your warnings get completely ignored.
Exactly.
You have to make a choice. You have to decide if you want to be right or if you want to be effective because the sources are incredibly clear. You rarely get to be both when you're dealing with a bruised ego in a public setting.
It is entirely about questioning your own professional boundaries
Ugh.
and your default communication habits. Are you prioritizing the objective truth over the functional reality of your workplace?
Which is tough.
It is, because the functional reality is, and always will be, driven by human emotion, status preservation, and social anxiety.
And as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a brand new angle on this to chew on.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this whole time talking about how to manage upwards, how to handle a boss who is wrong. But the sources hint at a terrifying flip side to this dynamic.
They do.
The higher you climb in a company, the more power you get, the more isolated you become from the truth. Because suddenly you are the one holding the keys to everyone else's livelihood.
Become the tribal leader.
Exactly. So look closely at your own trajectory. If you eventually become the boss, or maybe you already are, how are you going to make sure that you don't become the emperor with no clothes?
That's the real challenge.
How do you ensure your team feels safe enough to tell you the truth so they don't have to use these ego-saving communication tricks on you?